Hello, everyone. So we will be continuing with our discussion on microeconomics. This is the third class of microeconomics, and here we will discuss elasticity in detail. So let's get started. So the first concept that we will discuss is the price elasticity of demand. Now, I want you to recollect the features of demand curve, which we have studied in our first class of microeconomics. Let's quickly recollect what are the features of a demand curve. Before that, we will see how does a demand curve looks like. Price and quantity, and this is how a demand curve would look like. So we know that demand curve is the graphical representation of law of demand. So what does the law of demand say? Law of demand says that when the price increases, quantity demanded decreases, and when the price decreases, quantity demanded increases. This is what the law of demand says, and the graphical representation of law of demand is called as the demand curve. Now we know that the features of demand curve, first one is that it is a downward sloping curve. The second feature of demand curve is that it shows a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. That is what we have said. When price increases, quantity demanded decreases, and when price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Now, the third feature, which we have discussed already, but we haven't gone into detail, and I said I'll be discussing this when we discuss elasticity, was that the percentage change in, that is the percentage change in quantity demanded and the percentage change in price may not be the same. It can be, may or may not be the same. So, elasticity or price elasticity of demand is actually concerned with this third feature, that is the proportion of change in quantity demanded and the proportion of change in price. How does they vary, or how is this proportion affected? So we will discuss this in detail. Now, before that, let us take a simple illustration to understand this in much more detail. Let us take, for example, a case where the price of a commodity is increasing. Let us take three cases, 1, 2, and 3. Let us assume that in the first case, price has increased by 10%. Again, in the second case, price increased by 10%. And again, in the third case, price increased by 10%. These are the three cases we have taken. Now, quantity demanded. We know that according to the law of demand, when the price of a commodity increases, the quantity demanded decreases. That's how it is. That is what we call as law of demand. So, according to the law of demand, whenever there is an increase in price, there should definitely be a decrease in the quantity demanded. In the first case, price has increased by 10%. And let us also take that the quantity demanded reduced by 10%. That is, there is a reduction of quantity demanded by 10%. In the second case, we are assuming that the price has increased by 10%, but here we assume that the quantity demanded has increased more than proportionate, that is more than 10%. That is, even though the price has only increased by 10%, we assume that quantity demanded has increased by more than 10%. Let us take it as 20%. And in the third case, where the price has increased by 10%, we assume that the quantity demanded has changed only less than proportionate, that is less than 10%, which is 5%. So this is what we assume. So these are the three cases. Now, in the first case, you see that the percentage change in price and the percentage change in quantity demanded is the same, that is equal. Here, both are equal. But in the second case, what do you see? The percentage change in price is lesser than percentage change in quantity demanded. Or we can say the percentage change in quantity demanded is higher than percentage change in price. Now, let's come to the third case where the price has increased by 10% and quantity demanded by 5%. Here we see that the price has increased by 10, whereas quantity demanded has only increased by less than proportionate, that is less than 10%. So here, the increase in price is more than that of increase in quantity demanded. These are the three cases. Okay. Now, we are going to, or we are trying to find out elasticity, and elasticity has a formula that is E equal to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. This is the formula. Now let's try to apply this formula to all these three cases. In the first case, that is percentage change in quantity demanded is 10 divided by percentage change in price, that's equal to 10, that is 1. We get the answer 1. Second case, percentage change in quantity demanded is 20, whereas percentage change in price is only 10. So we get the answer 2. The third case, it is 5 divided by 10. Then we get the answer 1 by 2, or maybe we can say 0.5. Okay. So these are the three numbers we have actually got here. Now see, in the first case, both price and quantity demanded changed by the same percentage or by the same proportion. And we get elasticity as 1. So this type of elasticity is called as unit elastic. So what is unit elastic? Unit elastic means the percentage change in price and the percentage change in quantity demanded would be the same. And by applying the formula of elasticity, we get a value of 1. Elasticity would be equal to 1. That is unit elastic. The second case is where the change in quantity demanded is more than the change in price. So in this case, even though the price has increased by some percentage, the quantity demanded or the change in quantity demanded is much higher than the percentage of change in price. So such situations are called elastic demand or highly elastic demand. Okay. In case of elastic demand, the value would be more than 1. So here we can say more than 1. Unit elastic will be equal to 1. And the third category is where the quantity demanded change is less than the change in price. So here we get a value less than 1. In this case, we call it as inelastic demand. Inelastic demand. And in case of inelastic demand, the value would be less than 1. So there are three types of elasticity: unit elastic, elastic, and elastic, and inelastic. So these are the three types of elasticity. Okay. All right. Now let's come to the definition of elasticity. Price elasticity of demand. So what is price elasticity of demand? It refers to the degree of responsiveness of a quantity demanded of a commodity to change in its price. That is how a consumer or a customer is responding to change in price. And how is this response seen? This response can be seen from the change in quantity demanded. Okay. So responsiveness of quantity demanded of a commodity with or to change in its price. Now, this is the formula which we have already discussed. Elasticity is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. So these are the three types of elasticity. One is elastic demand, where the change in quantity demanded is greater than change in price. We have discussed this. Then change in quantity demanded is less than change in price. That is inelastic demand. And where both the percentages would remain the same, that is change in price and change in quantity demanded, that would be called as unitary elastic or unit elastic. And this is how the graphs will be. In case of elastic demand, it would be a flatter curve. And in case of inelastic demand, it would be a steeper curve. Okay, so this is how the graphs would look like. So these are the three types of elasticity. I hope it's clear for you. First one, unit elastic, second one, elastic, and the third one, inelastic. Now we also need to understand what are the factors that influence the elasticity. So what are the factors? Factors that influence elasticity of a commodity. The first factor is the availability of substitutes. Availability of substitutes. Let's try to understand this. Let's take two commodities, A and B. Assume that the price of A increases. Okay. So when the price of A increases, we have already seen this when we discussed about what are the factors that create demand in an economy. So assume that A and B are substitutes, which means A can be used instead of B and B can be used instead of A. So assuming that A and B are substitutes, also assume that the price of A has increased. What will automatically happen? When the price of A increases, its demand, quantity demand would go down. And we assume that when the price of A is increasing, price of B is remaining the same. There is no change in the price of B. So automatically, quantity demanded of B will increase. Now, as a consumer, consumers are rational human beings or rational beings, which means that they make a decision based on their rational and logical thinking. So imagine yourself as a consumer and you want to purchase this commodity A, but unfortunately the price of A has increased. So you know that there is a substitute for A, which is B, and whose price has not changed. So what will you do? You will switch your demand to commodity B. So as a result of this, what will happen? Quantity demanded of A would drastically decrease. And assume that A doesn't have any substitute. If there are no substitutes for A, what will happen? You will not have a choice. You, even though the price increases, you will have to buy that commodity because there is no alternative for that. So what will happen? Quantity demanded may reduce, but not so much, right? So if for a commodity, if substitutes are available, what will happen to the quantity demanded? It will go down more than proportionate. So we can say that if substitutes are available, that commodity will have a elastic demand. Why elastic demand? Because why elastic demand? Because there are substitutes available and there is higher chance that consumers will switch to the substitutes. Now, the second factor that influences the elasticity is nature of the commodity. Nature of the commodity, which we can divide into luxury and necessity. Luxury and necessity. Now, let's take a luxury commodity, which means that is not very much essential or very much needed. So when the price of luxury commodity increases, what will happen? Its demand will automatically fall down. Why? Because that's not a necessity. So in case of luxury commodities, there is a elastic demand. And let's take necessities. In case of necessities, like example, medicine. Will you stop buying a medicine because the price has gone up? Maybe there can be reduction in the quantity demanded, but in case of necessities, the demand will remain inelastic. Okay. So these are the two important factors that influence the elasticity of a commodity. Okay. I have explained it here. Now we are moving on to the next topic, that is types of economic system. Okay. Economic system can be broadly divided into four. Even though there are even more number of classifications for economic system, we can broadly divide them into four categories. The first one is capitalistic economy. Second one is socialist economy. Third one is mixed economy. And the fourth one is communist economy. So broadly, 1, 2, 3, and 4 types of economic system. These are all basic things which will help you understand the upcoming modules in detail. So we will discuss them. I'm sure you must have all heard about these four types of economic system, but we need to study the features of the system in detail. First, coming to capitalist economy. When we say the term capitalist economy, I'm sure the country that comes to your mind would be USA. So think about what are the market features of the country USA to call it a capitalist economy. So we will see. The first one is that in a capitalist economy, private sector would be predominant, which means that we can broadly divide two sectors, the economy into, or the economic activities into two sectors, or economic activities will broadly come under two sectors, that is private sector and government sector, government and private. So in case of a capitalistic economy, the private sector is predominant, which means that the resources are mainly handled by private sector, which means production, distribution, and allocation of resources are done by the private sector predominantly. It plays a major role. But when it comes to a socialist economy, public sector is predominant, which means the government is predominant, which means the government produces, distributes, and allocates the resources mostly in a socialist economy. Third, we have mixed economy. A very good example of mixed economy would be India. I will be discussing about the case of India in detail, even though, I won't do it right now here. After discussing this types of economic system, we will do that in detail. Okay. So in case of a mixed economy, both the private sector and the public sector are significant, which means that in those cases where the government feels that welfare is very important, government would step in, and wherever competition has to be promoted, government would promote the private sector. So there is both the private sector and the public sector, both are important here. And in a communist economy, there is an absence of private sector, or we can say that communist economy works on the basis of ownership by all. There is no private property. We can say that there is no private property in a communist economy. It is owned by everyone equally. Now, second feature of capitalist economy is that it follows the principle of laissez-faire. What is meant by laissez-faire? It's a very important principle. Laissez-faire means free market. Free market. Now, what is meant by free market? In the last class, we said that a market means, when we talk about market from an economic perspective, it means two factors coming together or two factors culminating together, which is the demand and supply factors. So two factors that culminate together to create market is demand and supply. So laissez-faire means that there is a free market, which means there is demand and supply factors which determine what has to be produced in what quantities and how it has to be distributed. So it's completely up to the market based on competitive conditions. So based on competitive conditions, market will decide whether to produce this or that. Okay. But in a socialist economy, government intervention is more, which means capitalist economy follows the principle of free market. Free market means the demand and supply factors decide everything, and there is no government intervention. In a free market, there is no government intervention. It is the demand and supply factors which decides everything. But when it comes to a socialist economy, government intervention is more. The third one is the mixed economy, where moderate and selective government intervention would be there. Like in case of India, even though we have a free market, government often regulates this market through various policies. A very good example of such policy would be price ceiling. At times, government fixes the ceiling price, that is the highest price at which you can sell a commodity. So here government intervention would be there, but not as frequent and as regular as in case of socialist economy. And the market is not as free as in case of capitalist economy. It's a balance of both. In a communist economy, government makes all the economic decisions and owns all the property and wealth, which means actually in a communist economy, the basic principle is ownership by everyone. That is equal distribution, or it follows a egalitarian principle. Egalitarian principle. Now coming to resource allocation. Resource allocation in a capitalistic economy is done by the market through market mechanism, that is through demand and supply. So resource allocation is done through market mechanism of demand and supply. But in case of socialist economy, resource allocation is done through economic planning. Like in case of USSR, the earlier erstwhile USSR had economic planning, and that's from where we have adopted our idea of economic planning. So economic planning would be a would be done by a centralized body, that is a centralized government body, which will make plans for the entire country. Okay. So through economic planning, socialist economy allocates resources, whereas in a mixed economy, we follow a modified market mechanism. Now, what is meant by modified market mechanism? Market mechanism is where the demand and supply factors interplay in order to decide everything, whereas in a modified market mechanism, government modifies the demand and supply to overcome the issue of or to provide social justice, which means at times government interferes in order to ensure that welfare is being delivered. Now, state allocates resources based on need in case of a communist economy. As we said, in a communist economy, the principle that we follow is egalitarian or ownership by all. Okay, ownership by everyone. So in that case, need is the factor that influences resource allocation. Coming to the motive, in case of capitalistic economy, profit is the motive, that is maximizing profit. Whereas in socialist economy, social welfare is the motive. Whereas in a mixed economy, profit and well-being, welfare or well-being, both are important. That is, the private sector would maximize the profit, whereas the government will try to maximize welfare, and coming together, there is a balance of both. Now, the motive of communist economy is equality or egalitarian, create an egalitarian society. Advantages of capitalist economy is that there would be high efficiency and high competition, whereas in case of socialist economy, social justice will be ensured. In case of mixed economy, efficiency would be high and social justice will also be ensured, but efficiency would not be as high as in case of capitalist economy, and welfare would not be as high as in case of a socialist economy. It would be a balance. And the advantage of communist economy is that it eliminates greed, closes the gap between rich and poor. Disadvantage of capitalist economy is that social injustice and social inequality will be present because the primary motive here is profit. The disadvantage of socialist economy is that there would be low efficiency and low competition. Now, the disadvantage of mixed economy, as I said, there would be a compromise on both. Efficiency won't be that high and social welfare will not be as high as in case of socialist economy. Now, in case of a communist economy, lack of competition and lack of profit incentive is the problem. Examples are given here. You can go through the examples. So these are the 4 important types of economic system. Next, we have types of market. Okay, so types of market, there are many different types of market, but we will be dealing with the 4 most important types of market. The types of market, the 4 important ones. One is perfect competition. Second one is monopoly. Third one is monopolistic competition. And the fourth one is oligopoly. So these are the 4 most important types of market. And we will understand these types of market based on some factors like number of firms. Some examples we will see: nature of product and availability of substitutes, price fixation based on entry and exit. So these are the factors we will consider. Now, let's first come to perfectly competitive market or a perfect competition. Now, in a perfect competition, what is meant by a perfect competition? A perfect competition is a market condition where there would be large number of firms, which means the market is highly competitive. Anybody can enter the market, anybody can easily exit from the market. So there would be large number of firms and the consumers will be having a lot of options or choices, which means there would be a large number of substitutes. Okay, a large number of substitutes would be available, and because there are large number of firms, it is the demand and supply which will decide the prices. Not any firm or not any single monopoly will decide the prices here, but it will be based on the demand and supply of that commodity. So let's see the features. The first point, as I said, there would be large number of firms. there would be a lot number of firms. The consumers are free to choose from any. Example, wheat, rice, etc. Or you can take, for a simple example, you go to a supermarket and you go to the section of curry powders. You see a lot number of brands which almost will have the similar prices, similar quantity, quality, everything. So that's a perfectly competitive market where you are left with a lot number of choices, and the products are homogeneous in nature, which means they're not much different from each other. So that is a perfectly competitive market. Products would be homogeneous and there would be a large number of substitutes available. Market forces of demand and supply would be the factors which will fix the price, and there is free entry and exit. This is a case of a perfectly competitive market. Second, we will come to monopoly. You must have heard about this term monopoly in different contexts, different aspects and perspectives. So what is this? Monopoly. Mono means one. Monopoly means the existence of one single entity that controls the entire market or the entire market structure. Let us take the example of Indian Railway. Is there anybody or any firm that can replace Indian Railway, which means providing the same services? No, right? So Indian Railway, especially the railway operations, comes under example of monopoly. Earlier, we had many firms running under monopoly. Like for example, telecom. We had only the government sector in the telecom. Then the airline sector. Earlier, before privatization of airlines, we had only the government in the airline sector as well. But with globalization, we have started opening up the market and started privatizing. So we have very less number of monopolies. For example, atomic energy, railway, all these are some of the examples of monopoly. And these monopolies are under the possession of government, not with the private sector. Now, have you ever thought, why would the government, especially in a country like India, would not allow the private sector to become a monopoly in something? The reason is very simple, because if the monopoly is given to a private sector, then the private sector would exploit the consumers in the long run. That's the reason. Okay. And in order to see whether everyone has a level playing field or whether anybody is becoming a monopoly, and if some firms are becoming a monopoly, to take corrective action, we have something called as CCI, that is Competition Commission of India. And what is the purpose of CCI? CCI, or the Competition Commission of India, would ensure that everyone will have a level playing field and no consumer is exploited in the name of monopoly. So that's the purpose of CCI, or Competition Commission of India. So I hope it's clear. Now let's come to the features of monopoly. As I said, monopoly means one single entity or one single firm. And examples we have seen. See, because there is only one single firm, the product will also be unique, which means there will not be any substitutes for the product. Close substitutes will not be available. And who will fix the price? It is the firm which will fix the price, because there is nobody else to do it. There is only supply from one single firm. And entry would be restricted. There would be a lot of conditions to enter into a monopoly market. Now, next is monopolistic. Now, monopolistic, we can say that it's a combination of monopoly plus perfectly competitive market. That's why it's called as a monopolistic competition or monopolistic market. I'll give you an example first to understand what is monopolistic, then we'll come to the features. Let us take the example of some cosmetics or toiletries like soaps. Take the example of bathroom soaps that you use. There are different brands available. But even though there are a lot of options available for you, or a lot of, choices for you, every soap would be different from that of another. Let's take, for example, Dove. It comes out with their own features, like there is more kind of moisture content and moisturizer content and everything. Then we have Ayurvedic soaps coming up with Ayurvedic features. So even though you have a lot of options, like in case of perfect competition, each one of them comes with a differentiated product, which means every product has its own unique feature, even though there are substitutes. Substitutes are available, but differentiated products. You will not get the same product as in case of curry powder. You buy the curry powder of brand A, chili powder of brand A. You buy the chili powder of brand B. It's almost the same. The content is chili powder itself. But take the example of soap. You buy Dove soap, you buy Pierce, both are soap, and the purpose and utility would be the same. Utility won't be the same, but still the purpose is the same. But you can see some kind of differentiation. The products are not exactly the same or the copy. So that's why we say these are a combination of monopoly and perfect competition. That's why we call them as monopolistic competition. Okay. Here there are large number of firms. You can just think of the example. You get the ideas by yourself. You get the features by yourself. Sorry. There are large number of firms, but products are highly differentiated. And the firms have some control over the price. Why? Because of their unique feature. Because I'm giving you a different product, I have some control over the price. And there is free entry and exit. See, free entry and exit is a feature of perfectly competitive market. Large number of firms feature of perfectly competitive market. Then close substitutes feature of perfectly competitive market. But differentiated product feature of monopoly. Then control over prices, a feature of monopoly. So it's a combination of perfectly competitive market and monopoly. Next, we have oligopoly. Oligopoly is different from monopolistic in the sense that in case of oligopoly, there are not as many number of firms as in case of perfect competition or as in case of monopolistic. The number of firms are few and products are either homogeneous or differentiated. Firms have more control over prices and entry is a little difficult. All these features combine together to create oligopoly. Let's take examples to understand it better. Airlines, mobile phones, cement, all these are examples. Let us take the case of airlines. Can you see as many as airlines as in case of a perfect competition, like in case of curry powders? You get thousands of brands of curry powders, but can you see that large number of airline operators? No, right? There would be, in India, there would be hardly 10 or 15 maximum. All right. So number of firms are restricted or less. And they provide homogeneous, like all the airlines provide services, the same connectivity service, but it's also differentiated. Maybe, if you take the case of Indigo provides the feature of low cost, flights. Then there would be Vistara, which provides, a little bit more comfortable seats and all that. And there would be, for example, some luxurious aircraft. So even though they provide the same homogeneous service, that is connectivity, within that there would be some differentiation in the features. Okay, so which makes them oligopoly. And the firms have control over prices. Sorry, firms have more control over, not firms, prices. Why they have control over prices? That's because of their differentiated character. And it's difficult to enter. To enter into a airline business, is it that easy as you start a curry powder business? No. So that is the oligopoly. So these are the 4 important types of market. I have given the explanation in the handout. You can go through the handout to read it in more detail. So yes. So these are the different types of markets. So with this, we will wind up for now. We'll continue the rest in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.